Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Pens Iceberg. I'm your host Casey Stamp alongside Luke Courtwright and Jason Kaczynski as always. Luke, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Definitely excited for the show tonight.
Good to hear, and thanks for being with us. And we're also joined as always by Jason Kaczynski. How's it going, Jason?
Doing very well. Always excited to be talking Pens hockey.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. Well, folks, no games on the slate tonight for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but we still have plenty to discuss. We'll be talking about the new four-conference realignment. We're going to have founder of NHL Offside Warner Lee here with us to discuss the Hart Trophy, among a few other topics, and we'll finish up, as always, with some game prediction. We've got a great show for you, and it's all coming right here your way on the Pens Iceberg. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The GMs met in beautiful Pebble Beach, California, known for its ocean views and its amazing golf course, to discuss, among many things, the NHL realignment plan. The GMs agreed on a realignment plan that will consist of four conferences, two in the East and two in the West. The conferences will have the following teams. Conference A, and this would sort of be what's now the Northeast Conference. We don't know what it'll be named, but we'll call it Conference A for now, consisting of Boston, Montreal, Buffalo, Florida, Ottawa, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. So that conference would add Tampa Bay and Florida. Conference B, which now would be the Atlantic Division. Again, we don't know what it'll be called in the future, would be Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York Islanders and the New York Rangers, Carolina Hurricanes, and the Washington Capitals. Excited for the rivalry to see with more games. Pittsburgh and Washington. Conference C currently would be the Central Division. Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Minnesota, Nashville, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. And Conference D, Anaheim, Calgary, Colorado, Edmonton, Los Angeles, Phoenix, San Jose, and Vancouver. So from the Pens' point of view, two new additions, two new rivalries, adding the Caps and Canes. Luke, what do you think of the new divisions?
I think it makes a lot of sense. But these two Florida teams really got a raw deal. They're used to traveling Raleigh, North Carolina, Washington. In years past, they had Atlanta there. But now they're grouped in with what used to be the Northeast Division, and is going to be really tough for them travel-wise. The league was never really going to be able to accommodate everyone, but this is kind of the way it goes. As a side note, though, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't wait to make this change with the whole Phoenix situation up in the air here. They could end up moving this offseason and just kind of messing with the system again. So we'll see how things shake out on that front.
I definitely agree with Luke. I think, well, first off, from a Pens perspective, I love it because you keep the rivalry with the Flyers. The Caps come in. It just feels like the old Patrick division again. There's a lot of healthy hatred to go around for everybody. And the Canes, Pens have never played them in the playoffs yet, but we did. I'm sorry, in the Cup year. But there's always been games between those two teams, so they do fit right in. On the league as a whole, you think you're never going to please everybody, and that's sort of kind of what has happened here. You've made some Western teams happy, and some Eastern teams are probably shaking their heads today. And what do you do with Phoenix? It's the elephant in the room. They could be in Kansas City or Quebec or Hamilton. Who knows?
Absolutely, and the new playoff format, what we speculate, will hold 16 teams, 4 from each conference. The new playoff system, however, would feature first-round division rivalries, so a matchup like Pittsburgh and Washington would, in effect, be in the opening round. And from there, it gets a bit vague and confusing. Of course, nothing's set yet for the second round. The division winners, we assume, would be seeded 1 through 4, whoever wins that initial division matchup, and they would play the other division winners. Now, because of the seeding in the second round, if that were to happen, it could be possible for 2 Eastern Conference teams, or rather 2 Western Conference teams, to meet in the final. So if that were to happen, say the Pens get the 1 seed overall and the Wings get the 4 seed overall, then you have the Bruins, say, getting the 2 seed and the Blackhawks getting the 3 seed. So you could say that the Pens and the Bruins win their respective series. You'd have an all-Eastern Stanley Cup final, and so much to absorb here. Jason, what do you think of the proposed playoff format?
Initially, I'm still trying to digest it a bit, but I'm not really a fan of it. It just takes away, I think, a little too much of even the conference rivalries we've had over the years. With the new schedule, you have every team playing each other home and away. But right as it stands now, the Pens will play the Canucks just as many times as they'll play either the Sabres or Montreal. So to me, I think it takes a little bit of that away. The nice aspect of that is it probably answers a little bit of debate for fans. Which conference has been either stronger or over the course of the season, and obviously if you have two teams from the East playing in the Cup Finals, that answers your question. But the real question is, what do you do with the two trophies given out at the end of the conference finals that nobody seems to want to touch? Do they go into mothballs or into the Hockey Hall of Fame? I don't know what happens there.
Well, I would definitely agree that I'm not really a huge fan of this proposal either. And honestly, I'm not sure that I can see this passing a vote from the Board of Governors. I think we would all agree that these ideas typically revolve around money and what can generate a whole lot of buzz. But when you're presented with the scenario of an all-East final or an all-West final, and you're a fan of a team in the opposite conference, it's going to be really tough to get emotionally invested in a matchup like that, because you're used to seeing this certain set of teams, but none of them are playing, and it's like, well, who am I going to root for here? Because fundamentally, sports, you root for one team over the other, and I'm just not sure that an all-East or all-West matchup is really going to generate what the league is going for at that point. So I'm just not sure that this is really going to do it.
And going off of what you just said there, Luke, I've heard that for the growth of hockey and the TV aspect especially, say an all-West Stanley Cup final or an Eastern Stanley Cup final, Eastern viewers might not tune in if it's an all-Western. Opposite, if it's an Eastern Conference, Western Conference teams, viewers may not turn in. So does the possibility of an all-East or West matchup hurt the game or its ratings?
Well, this is going to be one of the few times on the show that I will ever reference baseball. But in this case, I think it works really well. I'm sure you guys remember about 10 years ago, I think it was, the Mets and Yankees played in the World Series, which was a pretty this is a very popular matchup, for lack of a better word. But it also had one of the lowest average TV ratings that any World Series had to that point, since Nielsen had been taking these numbers anyway. And on the other end of the country here, people on the West Coast, they're really not having the easiest of times catching the beginnings of these games. On the flip side of that, the Angels and Giants played each other in the World Series, and it was kind of the same scenario. And this was only a year after Barry Bonds had broken the single-season home run record. But people on the East Coast aren't going to stay up to watch these games. I mean, some people are. They might not have the most productive days the next day. But generally speaking, people aren't going to stay up for those games. The numbers reflect it. And you might be hoping for a Washington-Pittsburgh final, and I'm sure that would generate a lot of buzz, but it could just as well be an LA-Vancouver matchup, and personally I would not be too invested in that.
I think you definitely have to be a little bit emotionally invested, and the East-West final usually does the trick for that. I'm not sure, teams in New York are going to pull viewership for an all-California Stanley Cup final. I think what's interesting is that the viewership, it's pretty hard to predict. You're going to try to go after casual fans, because hockey fans are hockey fans. If they love the game, they're going to be watching to see the greatest trophy in sports be awarded. I had a recent lively debate with a Bruins fan friend of mine who was really peeved that Versus pulled the Habs Bruins game in favor of Sidney Crosby's return against the Islanders, and we went back and forth on that a bit. And after the ratings came out, it proved that it was just a blip over an average versus game. So I guess I'll leave that up to the TV people to figure out. But as a hockey fan, I think you're going to want to watch good hockey, and if it's West versus West, so be it.
And travel-wise, how much better is this on the Western Conference teams than it was before? We know the Florida teams kind of got a raw deal being paired in with the Northeastern Division guys, but for the Western Conference side of things, how does this help the travel? Does it help or hurt or stay basically the same?
I think it definitely I can pick out a couple teams in the West that definitely helps. Detroit, I think 60 of their games are going to be within the Eastern time zone. They have some of the West Coast games that they'll play the home and away, but for the most part, they're even their first and second round playoff games will be no more than one time zone away. Dallas greatly improves. Vancouver's schedule's cut down flight-wise a little bit, mile-wise. Minnesota improves, but then again, obviously the flip side of that is like we've already talked about. You're not going to make everybody happy. If I'm a fan of the Florida teams, I'm happy to see the Canadian teams come in and help fill up the buildings, but at the same time, players on that team aren't going to be sleeping in their beds on too many nights. Logistically, it's a nightmare and it doesn't make sense. So I don't know how you appease everybody.
I think Minnesota is really, really coming out great with this, because they're used to schlepping it out to Western Canada, but now they've got all these teams within their time zone, and actually within somewhat of a reasonable distance, I guess. Dallas, of course, too. Like Jason mentioned, they're not trekking out to California on a regular basis. Some of these West Coast teams, I don't think it makes too much of a big deal there, but for what's essentially become a Midwestern conference, if you want to say, I think it makes things worlds better for sure.
And certainly a pretty radical realignment, hopefully for the better, and if it all passes by the Players Union and the Board of Governors, and hopefully it will work for the better. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to have Warner Lee from the NHL Offside. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It is our pleasure to have with us here this evening Warner Lee from the NHL Offside Facebook page. Warner owns and operates the page. It's really a great source for hockey news and info. We're glad to have you here, Warner. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic as always, and great to have you on tonight. We're going to discuss the Hart Trophy and who might be looking to take home the hardware for this year's NHL's most valuable player. Warner, we'll just start off by asking you here, who do you think, in your eyes, this year so far is the NHL's most valuable player?
Well, I mean, if we look at it in terms of statistics, I mean, Phil Kessel is leading the league in scoring, but I'm looking at the top players here, and I can't help but think that, Sedins are always a threat, as you know, in the last couple of years, but, Malkin's having a great season as well, and, we can't, the way I always see it is that there's a group of 5 or 6 players at this moment, and, they're going to start weeding themselves out near maybe, 3/4 of the season through. Then we'll really get a good look at who the ones are going to last. I mean, we've got players like Giroux, we got players like Weiss. Are they going to keep up this kind of scoring pace?
Absolutely. And speaking of Malkin, there was an article that I wrote just a few days back. You can find it on Penn'sIcebergRadio.com, and it's titled Malkin's Got Heart. We've already seen Sid win this award. What do you think about Malkin's chances to win? Where does he stand as far as the best players in the world?
I think he's got to be right up there. And, looking at Malkin and looking at the Pittsburgh Penguins, I got to say, I'm shooting for the quad crown, I'm telling you, Casey. Because if Malkin wins the MVP, that would make, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3 Pittsburgh Penguins so far have won the MVP. And Malkin would make it 4. And that's incredible when you think, well, that's only in the last 20 years. And you've had 4 different possibly winners on one team. Amazing.
Absolutely, and the Pittsburgh Penguins certainly have a rich tapestry and tradition of some awesome players when you're talking about Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, Kevin Stevens, Rick Tocchet, some just outstanding players have played for the Pens over the years. And, of course, Malkin was nominated once for the Hart Trophy but was ultimately beat out by the grade 8 Alexander Ovechkin. Warning, coming off a brutal knee injury last season in which Evgeny Malkin tore both his ACL and MCL. He had a full summer of intense workout that we saw with Sergei Gonchar, and he was rehabbed rather quickly. How much do you think his summer workout regimen contributes to the outstanding level of playing we're seeing early in the stages of this season?
Well, I see it just as much as I see in Crosby. It's about passion. I mean, you've got to have passion for the game to want to play the game at the highest level and fight through injuries and rehab from injuries. And Malkin obviously has shown in the last few years he's got that passion. And, you know, passion with skill. I mean, that's an unbelievable combination, and that's what Sid has. He's got unbelievable passion. And, you know, I mean, he's shown that he can play without Sid. And just to throw in a side note, I mean, I like to say that Fleury, I know he's a goalie, but you know what? We got to consider him as one of the, nominees for Hart. I mean, if you just look at it in terms of the last 2 seasons, what he's done with Pittsburgh without top end defensemen, forwards, unbelievable.
Absolutely, and certainly Fleury is a backbone for this team, for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. You think about all the great forwards and defensemen we have at our disposal, but really Fleury is what ties it all together. And we all know Evgeny Malkin, the shooter, the sniper, the guy with the slick hands. Let's talk about more about Malkin as a pure offensive creator and a playmaker. He obviously may be a bit overshadowed by the NHL's greatest playmaker on the first line, but James Neal leads the Penguins in goals and also in points. On that line, centered by Evgeny Malkin. Talk a little bit about Malkin's ability to see the ice differently and really just create offense.
Well, I think Malkin actually has what great players do have. And it's not just a sixth sense, but it's also the ability to see the play in a different view and to slow the game down. But you have to have extraordinary ability above and beyond that to be able to do what he does. The same as Yager when he was in Pittsburgh. I compare him a lot more to Yager than I would say Lemieux, obviously not Mario Lemieux, or Sidney Crosby, because he just has that great anticipation, and I think he's just getting started. I really do. I really think Malkin has really come into his own, and this is just, you're just seeing, he's not even finished what the end product is going to be when you see him in another few years. And unbelievable. I mean, he is a player, I'll admit to this too, Casey. I never thought he was going to be able to pull it out after Sidney went down. I have to say, and he surprised me.
Absolutely. He was an outstanding leader. When you talk about the absence of Sidney Crosby, he was really one of the guys that stepped up most along with Jordan Staal. And of course, Malkin still has a little bit of upside, not done maturing yet. And he's just had an incredible start to this career. Switching gears from the Penguins here to some of the rest of the NHL, Phil Kessel, still the leading scorer right now. And I know a lot of experts expect that he will drop off to some extent. Do you share in that opinion?
I don't think he'll drop off in terms of production. I think he'll drop off in terms of point per game average, because this is an unbelievable pace he's on. And the thing is that also we got to look at Toronto as a team. They're playing very well. I mean, same as with Pittsburgh. I mean, I never thought with Reimer going down that they would ever be able to survive, more than a couple of weeks without him. And you know what? Unbelievable. I mean, they've come together. Brian Burke has put a team together there that was mocked the last few seasons, and he's done a great job. And with Phil Kessel, I think he will be able to stay in the top 5. I don't think he'll be the leading scorer, but I think he's a strong candidate to be in the top 5.
Absolutely, and certainly Brian Burke, an outspoken GM, has put together a team that's doing well so far this season, and the backup goalies and Jonas Gustafsson and Ben Scrivens have really taken over in Reimer's place and really led that team to a few good victories. They beat the Rangers last night on the Rangers home ice, which, as we've seen, is just not such an easy thing to do this season. We'll take it a step further here, though. The Maple Leafs are a team that has consistently disappointed over the last few seasons. Obviously one of the NHL's biggest fan bases and historically one of the best franchises, and yet they haven't made the playoffs in the post-lockout era. Do you expect that the Leafs can keep the same pace they've been on and really make a push for a playoff spot? And if so, how do you like that particular team's chances in a 7-game series against a tough Eastern Conference team, say the Bruins or the Sabres or the Flyers? How would this team fare in a 7-game series?
Well, the great thing about the Toronto Maple Leafs this year is that they've learned to play and play well away from home. And that's very important. I really don't, to say that they're going to make the playoffs this year, I mean, we got some teams that are just out of the playoff picture right now. And I'm thinking that could actually move up a little bit. And you look at Washington, they're playing, I think they're playing a little soft myself. And Montreal, I mean, they're playing a little softer than I thought they would. But it's going to be a dogfight for Toronto. I really think it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, I think they've had a great start. But it's like people in Toronto, when's it all going to come crashing down? I mean, it's that kind of mentality up here. And, and also with the playoff series, if they do happen to get a playoff spot, boy, I mean, they'll be fighting for 6th, 7th, and 8th. To play a top 3 team, wow. I mean, you look at Pittsburgh, Boston, Rangers, Philly. My belief is that they're going to have a lot of problems. I don't think they're deep enough. I don't think their forwards have enough experience. I don't think their defense is proven, but they're also, when you look at the defense as a whole, I think it's a weak point. They're playing well now, but I think it's a weak point on that team.
And certainly, fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs, some of the most enthusiastic fans about their team. Always when you go to Toronto, you can easily engage someone in discussion about the Leafs, and certainly so many disappointments for that team. It is going to be tough for them to make the playoffs and, obviously sustain playoff momentum with all the great teams in the Eastern Conference, but you know that the crowd will be up for a home game in Toronto, and hopefully for the Maple Leafs fans, they can finally see their dreams come true and maybe make a playoff spot. And another big story this season, certainly maybe the shock of the whole NHL, it has been the Minnesota Wild. Personally, I expected them to do well long before now. So many tools, Koivu, Backstrom, Bouchard, Cullen, Minnesota Rays. You're talking about Matthew Cullen. They made big trades to acquire Devin Setaguchi and Danny Heatley, sending back Martin Havlat and Brett Burns over to San Jose. They have their 2 new additions and the outstanding play of their backup netminder Josh Harding. Obviously, Nick Backstrom still being pretty consistent. Has that made this team finally a playoff contender?
I think they made them a playoff team. Definitely, they've always been a very competitive team. They've always given the Vancouver Canucks a lot of problems because of their style at one point, and plus their system. But this year, I think I agree with you 100%. I would never have in 100 years thought that they would actually be as good as they are this year, because you really don't have any standout players. I mean, you got Danny Heatley. I don't think he's a good player, but I really don't think he's the one that made a big. I mean, this is one that leaves me scratching my head because I picked them actually to be out of the playoffs. It just caught, like I said, just caught me off guard, and I really believe watching a handful of games that they played this year, they're for real. They are for real. They're disciplined, and like you said, they've added important components to the team that were missing. And watch out for this team come playoff time because they will make the playoffs. Martin, they will. It's not them. They will make the playoffs. I feel sorry for any team that has to play them because discipline and balanced scoring, that is the picture here in Minnesota.
Absolutely, and kind of shocking that they've done so well defensively. You might think that their offense would excel a little bit to some point, picking up Setaguchi and Heatley, but defensively they've just really excelled. Defense has been their whole game, even after losing a guy as important as Brett Burns. All right, we've got one final question for you here. Big Eastern Conference matchup last night between the Penguins and the Bruins, which the Bruins came out on top 3-1. Of course, we all know about Chris Letang and Zbigniew McCulloch being unavailable last night, as well as Derek England with his lower body injury. Many saw this game as a measuring stick for the top team in the East. In your eyes, who's the team to beat in the Eastern Conference? Is it the Pens, or did the Bruins claim that spot with their victory last night, or could it possibly be someone else?
It's a great battle up there in the Eastern Conference right now, and I see Pittsburgh not running away with it because you have to also look at the fact that if they come into some injury problems again, it could be an issue with Pittsburgh because right now they have, to me, with the lineup they have, they are the team to beat. But Boston, unbelievable run. I mean, they haven't lost in the last 10 games. They have an amazing away record. So it's going to be a battle between those two teams. And again, Casey, I had no idea Boston would be it because I really thought last year when they won the Cup that they squeaked by in every series they played except for the finals. They squeaked by. And even in the finals, I thought they dominated. But it went down to Game 7. I really thought this year was going to be kind of one of those, those playoff hangovers where, you know what, they're probably going to be battling for 8th, 7th place, But, hey, I mean, I wish I could tell you, but, I mean, if my money was betting on it, I'd bet on Pittsburgh because with Sidney Crosby back, this team is a whole different team.
Absolutely, a whole different team, and they finally reunited with their leader just a couple Mondays ago. And Boston Bruins 14-0-1 in their last 15 games, so they are just absolutely on a tear. And Warner, we thank you so much for joining us here tonight and giving us the totality of your hockey knowledge, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Casey, and I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thanks to Warner Lee. Again, everybody, make sure to check out his page. It's facebook.com, and the name again of that page is NHL Offside, or you could visit the website at nhloffside.wordpress.com. All right, folks, we're going to take a short intermission, and when we return, we'll have some game prediction. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Thursday, the Pens will take on their old cross-state rival, personally my favorite rivalry. The Philadelphia Flyers, Claude Giroux, and Jaromir Jagr have been on an absolute tear. Luke, as always, we'll begin with you here. What do you expect to see in this game?
Well, after the Pens had somewhat of a lackluster performance, I guess you could say, against Boston, they'll probably come out hard here. Between the Pens' issues with their depth on defense right now, and that seemingly never-ending Philly goaltending carousel, this could very well end up being a bit of a back-and-forth game. I think it'll be 4-3 Pens, and what should be definitely a fun game.
Absolutely, ditto on that, Luke. The Pens are not going to be happy that they got outplayed against Boston, and they had 2 days off here to stew about it, and they'll be anxious to get back on the ice. The goalie carousel, as Luke mentioned, depending on who it is, if Ilya Brizgalov this season has been pretty much feast or famine. He's been really great or been absolutely poor. So hopefully the Pens can pick up on that early, and if they get 40 shots on Philadelphia, like they've been getting close to the last few games, I like their chances. And Chris Pronger being out definitely helps the Pens. So I think the Pens take it in a close one.
Does the whole Jaromir Jagr offseason situation, along with the Max Talbot switching sides in this rivalry, add any fuel to the Flyer? Luke, we'll start with you.
Well, to some extent, none of the Pens, the current Pens anyway, have played with Jagr. I think the fans are definitely riled up, but I'm not sure that the Pens players are really have too many issues with Jagr here. As far as Talbot goes, I think off the ice, the players would have to respect the position Talbot took. Getting 5 years, I think it was, out of Philadelphia for someone who's essentially a fourth line player. That's not something that would be easy to pass up. I think once they get on the ice, there will be some chirping back and forth, and it's definitely going to be a physical affair when there are Pens Flyers games not physical. So I guess some fuel, but I don't know that this is really a rivalry that needs any fuel.
Completely agree. The big emotional boost that this game will get will be at the end of the month when Philadelphia visits Consol Energy Center, and you get the fans for a chance to respond to events over the summer and go from there. Like Luke said, Mario Lemieux and Marty Straka aren't on the ice, so none of these guys really know who Jagr is too well. They're all young, and they played in the league with him a little bit. But as far as Max Talbot goes, I think there'll be a little bit of shock initially from seeing him in the creamsicle jersey. But other than that, once the puck drops, it's to quote Jay Moore as Bob Sugar and Jerry Maguire, "This ain't show friends, this is show business." And the Pens are going to be hungry for 2 points, especially coming off a loss and in front of a hostile crowd. But I think the respect will be there for Max Talbot always. But he's going to do his job. He's going to try to instigate a little bit and get under the Pens' skin. And he's paid by the Flyers now.
Absolutely, it's going to be awkward to see Max Talbot, a guy who, Pittsburgh fans are so used to, a fan favorite for so many people, scoring those 2 goals in the Stanley Cup final, be chirping away at the Pens and certainly maybe getting in the crease, getting in the face of Marc-Andre Fleury and maybe some of the Pens players. It's going to be all to see. And then on Saturday, the Pens will once again meet up with the Islanders. Sidney Crosby made his return against the Isles. 4 points in that game. Jason, do you foresee a repeat performance for Sid?
I at least foresee, I don't know about point-wise, but a better overall game. The Islanders are still pretty depleted on the defensive end. He abused Ursina in Pittsburgh, and I think that might, sometimes I can get into a defenseman's head a little bit. Team-wise, Pittsburgh, it's hard for me to recall a lot of good games that they've had on the island. They've usually been close games, but there's a 3-goalie carousel in the island, and some of the young players just haven't stepped up. Like I think the fans have helped Josh Bailey, Cal Oposo. So I see the Pens winning by at least 2 here.
The Islanders are an extremely strange case. I actually caught their game the other night against Chicago, and they looked halfway decent, actually. Issues with depth on defense and injuries, regardless, I suppose. But like I just mentioned, their goaltending really is a mess. Injuries there. They actually called up another young goaltender today, Kevin Poulin, along with former Penguin Tim Wallace, just got called up. So we'll see how poised they are. I'm not expecting a defensive battle here by any means. I'll go with a comfortable 4-1 Penguins win.
4-1 Penguins win is Luke's prediction, and certainly we hope so. We hope to see the Penguins have another great offensive night. Certainly the fireworks of last game hopefully will carry over. All right, folks, that does it for our game prediction and our show as well. Thanks everyone so much for tuning in tonight. Luke, as always, thanks so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, sounds good.
Jason, thanks so much for being here. Same place, same time next week.
Absolutely. I can already hear the Crosby sucks chant.
And that'll do it here from Penn's Iceberg. From all of us here, I'm your host, Casey Stamp, signing off. Have a great week.